Hello, I'm Emily Thrasher, and I'm part of the InStep team at NC State University. And we're here today with two experts in statistics education and data science education. And I'd like to let them both tell you a little bit about themselves. Tim, why don't you start?
Okay, I'm Tim Jacobbe. I am a professor and associate dean for academic affairs at Southern Methodist University.
Go ahead, Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Bargagliotti. I'm a professor at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles.
So thank you both for being here. We're very excited to hear from you. And I'm just going to start us off with just getting our feet wet with assessment and statistics and data science. So how would you define or describe assessment? Or what are the key ideas that teachers need to understand when it comes to assessment and statistics and data science education? Who would like to start us off?
I can give it a shot.
Thanks, Tim.
Just say a few things. So for me, it's all about what matters to you as a researcher or as a teacher, and really trying to gather valuable information. Assessment shouldn't be the be all and end all, nor should it be just for the sake of putting a score in a grade book, but you should be doing something with the data that you're collecting, just like we do in statistics. And so for assessment, to me, is most impactful when it's meaningful and you're collecting valuable information about your students that you will ultimately use. And so I'm a big proponent of formative assessment. And for an assessment to be formative, it needs to be used. And so to look back on the data, see what your students are struggling with, understanding, in order to inform your instruction moving forward. And so with me and with Locus, and we'll talk about Locus, I'm sure later, but we started with evidence-centered design, where we look at what are the key concepts we want students to understand, and then really articulating how do we assess that, and then what are we going to do with those assessment results. So to me, it's about not only the creation of it, but the use of it. Otherwise, there's no purpose of assessment.
Thanks, Tim. I really appreciate your focus on the idea of formative assessment and it driving your instruction. Anna, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think an important part of assessment is kind of the articulation of learning outcomes for our students. And then based on the learning outcome, then you can build questions, problems, or inquiries to see whether a student can meet that learning outcome. And I think what's really important with learning outcomes is that they come from content frameworks. So you can define, you start with a content framework, and then you go to a learning outcome, which then in turn can lead to an assessment. So maybe an example would be something like, suppose like your content framework tells you that you should learn how to use distributions, for example, to compare two groups. And then a learning outcome associated with that content might be that students look at two box plots next to each other, and they're able to use the amount of overlap and amount of separation to say something about whether the two groups are different. So then an assessment could possibly present several pairs of box plots and ask students to discuss similarities and differences across the pairs. It could ask students to state whether which one of the two groups has more variability present. It could ask them to compare centers of the distributions and states which measures of centers are more appropriate. So personally, I really view a content framework as the driver of instruction. So for me, assessment comes as a piece of the puzzle to help students recognize how the content can be approached. And then, of course, assessment can be anything as multiple choice or free response, short answer, or even big process ideas or project-based. And I personally have used all those types of assessments myself.